All right, I guess in honor of Labor Day, let's talk about getting out of the labor market. A lot of people asking about retiring. When can they retire in terms of Social Security? When's soonest they can start their benefits? What about their spouses, surviving spouses, children receiving benefits when they retire? So we're going to talk about that a little bit today in terms of early retirement. And one of the things that people make a mistake on is looking at their benefit estimate. So if you go into ssa.gov and make an account, which I recommend everybody does, My Social Security, set up a My Social Security account, you'll see your estimates in there. Like in the old days, you used to get that letter from Social Security once a year. And you make sure you check it and make sure everything is accurate, because that's how they're going to determine how much you make for the rest of your life, is based on how much you actually paid into Social Security. I got a question here about CDRs, disability benefits and CDRs. So once we talk about retiring early and getting benefits from Social Security early, I'll answer those questions. Long story short, don't stress continuing disability reviews. So there's that. All right. So in terms of retiring early and your benefit amount, here's a mistake a lot of people make, is that they look at their benefit amount when they go into My Social Security and they say, okay, I'm 55 years old now. What if I, just said, forget it. I just go ahead and retire, and I can kind of live on what I can for the next, many, many years. And then when I hit my full retirement age at 67 years old, I will get this amount of money. And they're looking at their Social Security statement. That is a mistake. Because what Social Security does, if you're 55 years old and you're looking at your benefit estimate, then what Social Security does is they project forward. So if you're 55 years old and you're working, let's say you made $50,000 last year, they will assume you're going to make $55,000, $50,000 this year, and next year, maybe a little bit with an inflation for the next, 12 years until you hit 67 years old. So you've got another 12 years of paying into Social Security that they're kind of calculating into that benefit amount. So if you retire at 55, you've lost those 12 years of earnings. And Social Security always calculates your benefits based on your high 35 years of earnings. So if your previous 35 years of earnings is already, super, super high, then you should be good. But going forward, usually as we progress further, then our earnings get a little bit higher for some people. Unfortunately, with this economy, maybe not that's definitely not a general rule, but your benefit amount is going to be reduced drastically. And this is the same thing that happens with people that receive disability benefits. I hear all the time that I filed for disability benefits and they reduced my benefit amount. No, not necessarily. The only way they would reduce it is if you're if you're receiving workers' comp. But other than that, what they are mistaken is the fact that if you start your disability benefits at 55 years old, you're not going to get what it says at your full retirement age at 67, because you're losing those 12 years of earnings. So Social Security, when you file for disability at 55 years old, you will get your benefit amount based on how much you paid into Social Security up until that time. And if you continue working and receiving disability benefits, which you can, very, very limited, a lot of limitations on working and receiving disability benefits, but your benefit will increase if that's one of your high 35 years. Exactly the same if you're receiving retirement benefits. If you're receiving retirement benefits, and you continue to work, your benefits are going to continue to increase. So whether you're 55 or 65 or 75 or 85 or 95, if you continue to work and continue to pay into Social Security, then Social Security automatically recalculates your benefits and just might increase your benefits if that's one of your high 35 years of earnings. So the disability reduction, no, it's not reduced. It's just not taking those future years into consideration. But what are some other ways you can get your Social Security benefits at, say, 55 years old or 50 years old? Obviously, as I just mentioned, disability. So you can get disability benefits at any time. And one of the mistakes people make, particularly younger people, if they're, if someone becomes disabled really early in life, 25, 35 or something like that, they say, well, I'm not eligible for disability benefits because I didn't pay into the system for 10 years. No, Social Security uses a reduced requirement for young people. So you could have as little as paying into Social Security for like a year and a half is enough. Same type of thing on survivor benefits. We see a lot of people that, the young parent, tragic accident or something, gets sick, leaves a child or two children behind, and they think they can't collect benefits because that person didn't work 10 years. No, very minimal amount at that age, basically a year and a half or so. If they paid into Social Security, then they're entitled, and therefore the children are entitled to benefits on that person's record. So make sure we reach out to everybody we possibly can. And there's a lot of people out there that are suffering and need that extra money. So another time you can get benefits early is between the ages of 50 and 59. It's called disabled widows benefits. So if you're disabled and you file for benefits on your own record, but it ain't that much, then what you can do is file if you from a divorce, or excuse me, a deceased spouse. So it could be a divorced deceased spouse as well. But a deceased spouse, it's called disabled widows benefits, and you can get that between the age of 50 and 59 years old. You have to file for benefits on your own record and see if there's more, and you should always do that anyway. You always want to get the higher amount. And the other time you can get benefits earlier than, let's say, 62 is a lot of people make mistakes, and survivor benefits. Survivor benefits, if you're not disabled, just regular survivor benefits, you can get starting at 60 years old. A lot of people miss that. They wait, oh, I can't start my survivor benefits till 62 because I heard 62 is the year you can start your benefits, and they lose 2 years of benefits. So 60 is when you can start those survivor benefits. And then for everything else, we're talking regular retirement benefits, spouse benefits, divorce spouse benefits. If that person is still out there, you start those at 62 years old. And anytime you take money from Social Security early, yes, it is reduced, other than disability. So if you take your retirement benefits at 62, it's reduced. If you take spouse benefits at 62, it's reduced. If you take surviving spouse benefits early at 60 or 62 or 63, it's reduced. There is an exception there, depending on whether the deceased person took their benefits early or not. There's always exceptions, the exceptions of exceptions, and all things Social Security. That's why I do this live Q&A, which let's go ahead and start it right now. Okay, so the first question, this young man was kind enough to donate. We appreciate that. Donate to the channel. This is a two-man operation, me and my son, so we appreciate all the help. So they'll pay for our coffee for the week. You're too awesome. Okay, so the person was approved for disability benefits, and they're worrying about the CDR. So my first thing is don't worry about the CDR, the continuing disability review. If you go onto my website, mygovexpert.com, click on the little disability thing, and it talks about continuing reviews and tons of information there, a whole bunch of questions and answers and all things CDRs. A lot of free information there. So, all right. Why shouldn't you worry about it? The Social Security Administration does a phenomenal job stressing people out about CDRs. Here's the deal. Here's my philosophy on CDRs. Another acronym, sorry. Prior Marine Corps, prior Social Security government, so a lot of acronyms. FCF. Forget about your CDR. When you actually get it, complete it, make copies, send it in. And then forget about it again. Because it's budget driven. Even if your continuing disability review, your medical continuing disability review is, let's say it's supposed to be this month, September 2025, time flies, right? You might not get it. You might not get it. And what they'll do is they've got a couple of versions. They send you out a short form or a long form, depending on variables. And if you get it, you get it. If you don't sweat it. because they are budget driven. Congress gives Social Security an allocation to do X amount of CDRs per year, and then they say, okay, we'll give y'all, permission, Social Security throughout the country to do, 10,000 CDRs, and then the headquarters of Social Security sends it to the individual offices, and my office, okay, Ed, you have to do 100 CDRs this quarter. Okay, we couldn't do 99, and we couldn't do 101. We'd get in trouble. If we did less, then, make sure we spend all that money and, used all that money. And we couldn't do 101, couldn't spend too much money. So if they told us to do 100, we had to do 100. And the issue with that is, in order to do 100, we had to send out like 200 of these packages, because a lot of people wouldn't return them in time. And a lot of people, wouldn't complete them, completely. People had moved, whatever the case may be. So in order to get the 100 that we needed, we'd have to send out 200, and therefore we'd be good getting the 100. And if you got that package and we were already at 100, whatever your local office is, if it was already at 100, then you're number 101, then they just pretty much just shred it, unless they, maybe want to hold it for the next quarter, but usually they don't do that because stuff changes, they'll send it out again. So even if, and if the office doesn't have a budget at all, if they only got 20, allocation from Congress to do 20, then yeah, then even if your time is up, you won't get it. And again, even if you get it and fill it out and you're all stressed and make copies and send it in, yours might actually be 101 or 102 in the stack. And they say, well, yeah, we can't do the 101st. Anything after the 100, we can't do anymore. So they just shred it. So you're sitting there sleepless nights every single night wondering, I wonder what's going on with my CDR. I wonder what's going on with my CDR. Well, it's in the shred bin. So don't sweat it. If you get it, fill it out, complete it, and then please forget about it again. If you're on disability, you got a whole bunch of other issues. Disability benefits ain't much, so I'm sure you've got some financial issues you're dealing with. You've got your disability, you've got doctor's appointments, and all that stuff. So please, yes, just keep on keeping on. Sorry for missing your YouTube channel last night. I really miss it. All right, thank you, appreciate it. Trump will help us all live better lives. Okay, all right, well. Question to the chat. How many of you are collecting Social Security currently? Put 1 if yes, put a 2 if no. Okay. Yeah, but a lot of these people, a lot of audience here, people here today are receiving benefits. Dr. Ed, no bin points after age 60, so most people's benefit won't increase much, if at all, for working in their later years. Yeah, bin points, yeah, your bin points, that's a completely different thing. That's how they calculate your benefit amount when you get your benefit amount is bin points. Yeah, so there's bin points forever. That's how your benefit is calculated. But will your benefit increase every year? Yeah, but again, 1 year usually doesn't make that much of, well, it does because it's 1 out of 35, so they don't look at 1 year. A lot of people make that mistake and they think, well, if I work really, if I work really hard the last 1 or 2 or 3 years, that's really going to increase my Social Security benefit, because they think their benefit amount is based on the last 1 or 2 or 3 years. It ain't. It's based on 35 years. So yeah, it depends on how much you work and how much your average, throughout your life. So yeah, it will increase it. But bin points is a completely different thing. So if I retire at 65, what's the limit of working hours? Well, hours is not an issue. You can work if you can work 1,000 hours a week, probably not legal, because you'd be making way under minimum wage. But it's the amount. So this year it's $23,400. Anything over $23,400, then Social Security holds back $1 for every $2 you go over. The only time the hours really matter is if you're self-employed. So if your net income from self-employment is a certain amount, then they can also technically look at how many hours you're putting into that business. But between you and me, Social Security doesn't have the amount of employees they need to monitor that stuff. And that's one of the ironical things about this whole focus on fraud, waste, and abuse. Doge and Elon Musk and all those guys came down and looking for fraud, waste, and abuse at Social Security, and they didn't find any. But they fired a whole bunch of people, the Social Security employees, that find fraud, waste, and abuse every day. But now Social Security is barely treading water, so they're not going to be able to spend time looking for fraud, waste, and abuse. So yeah, it's going to get, yeah. Barbara, my husband left me in 2014 when I had breast cancer. Wow. Still haven't talked to him. Okay. Yeah, could see why not. Okay, now that I can't work anymore with severe COPD and he's 65 and I'm 59, what can I get off that POS of a husband? All right. If you don't know what POS, then yeah. Anyway. So right now, he is still out there, sounds like. So he's 65, so you can't collect disabled widows benefits because he's still out there. The only thing that's available is when you turn 62 years old, unless something happens to him in the next couple of years. Anyway, so 62 years old, you file for benefits on your own record, and then you file for benefits on his record if there's that extra money there, if your benefit amount is less than half of his full benefit amount. So, but yeah, Bella said, yes, Bella made a recommendation. If you have these issues, you definitely should be filing for disability benefits. If you're unable to work because of these disabilities, please, please, please file for disability benefits as soon as possible, if not sooner. I will retire at 63 or 64. What must I do for Medicare? Nothing until 65, unless you get disability. Then with disability, Medicare starts after 2 years. But in terms of Medicare, if you're receiving benefits, money benefits from Social Security, when you turn 65, they sign you up for Medicare automatically, Part A and Part B, and you'll get all the information, the package in the mail about 100 days before you turn 65. And at that time, you can refuse Part B. You can't refuse Part A. There's a very, very small exception when you can. Basically, if you have to pay for Part A, those people can refuse it. Still get penalties, but anyway. But you can refuse Part B, save yourself $185 if you have current insurance from current work, yours or your spouse's, and that employer has 20 or more employees. But yeah, up until your Medicare starts, then the Affordable Care Act marketplace. If you're not receiving Social Security benefits, then when you're approaching 65 and you want Medicare to start, then you actually have to apply. And you can apply for just Part A only, Part A and Part B together, or Part A and just your money benefits and decline Part B. So there's different variables you can do there. And public service announcement, this is September. So y'all are going to be receiving, if you have a Medicare Advantage or a prescription drug plan, you're going to be receiving the ANOC here soon, the annual notice of change, and it's going to talk about your plan for next year. Just don't assume, oh, it's the same company and it's the same card. I don't have to do anything. I got the same doctor. I'm good. No, please. That's exactly what the health insurance companies want you to do. They want to make it complicated. So you just say, oh, I'll just let it ride. And then what happens way, way too often is next year, someone comes in here in June and they say, hey, I just went to the doctor and I got charged $3,000. But when I signed up for this plan, it said I was only going to be charged $300 for something like this. Yeah, that's because it's an old plan. These Medicare Advantage plans only last for 12 months. So your plan goes away December 31st at midnight. And January 1st, you get a new plan. It's probably have the same card and the same, the name, maybe the same doctor, same, company and stuff like that. But the details of the plan change. The actual mechanics, the engine is different. So you'll get the annual notice of change here in September. We'll tell you all that. If you need help, reach out to our partners at Chapter that sponsor this and help us provide all this free information. So if I pass and I'm separated from my husband, will he still get benefits? If and I'm separated. Okay, so separated, so you're not technically divorced. So he or she would be him or you would be considered a surviving spouse. And because you're not divorced, the 10-year marriage thing is not an issue. You just had to be married to someone for at least 9 months, a couple of exceptions there. But you had to be married 9 months. And then, yeah, he could very well get benefits on your record if he is 60 years old, or you could get benefits on his record if you are at least 60 years old. And work limitations, yeah, still apply. I'm still trying to figure out how to ask a question. There you go. That's how you ask it right there. But I've got tons of questions flying up, so I just kind of push buttons and see. I just answer questions on the fly. Sometimes I pay for it because I halfway through the question, I'm like, oh my gosh. And then yeah, anyway. Live. I sent a question in via the video app and can't see how to find out if you addressed it. The question is unrelated to retiring at 55. I'd love to hear how to find out if you addressed it. Yeah. Yesterday I wasn't able to answer the video questions. I had some technical issues, but I've got those today. But if you asked any questions over 48 hours ago, then it's in the video the next day. I answer all questions the next day. So, except for yesterday. So, unfortunately, I have to leave now. We'll catch the next live. All right. You take care of yourself. Have an awesome, awesome day. They've been hiding this from me. Can I retire at 55? You can stop working at 55, or you can't collect Social Security benefits unless, we're talking about disability or something like that. So, can I get Social Security when I turn 63, but do I have to stop working? Yes, you can get Social Security at 63 years old, and you don't necessarily have to stop working. You just have to reduce the amount of that work, because Social Security, when it was first started back in 1935, Social Security was meant to replace lost wages. So when you retire, you've lost those wages. So, if you retire, if you start collecting your Social Security and while you're still working, you're technically not replacing lost wages. But then, the full retirement age, it doesn't matter. Once you hit your full retirement age, you can make $1 billion a month and collect Social Security benefits. So I didn't get the option to decide which program I qualify to get until I turn 67, 70. Does it matter Midtown or survival benefits? I get SSDI. Okay, if you get SSDI and whatever age you are, you can collect other benefits. A lot of people miss this. Is if you're at least 60 years old and you're receiving disability benefits, you are still eligible to receive surviving spouse benefits. The benefit amount has to be higher than, the disability benefits, because they don't pay both full checks. One offsets the other. Or if you're at least 62 years old and you're eligible for spouse benefits or divorce spouse benefits, you can get those in addition to your disability benefits. Again, you don't get the two full checks. One offsets the other. So if you're eligible, again, for any benefits on anybody else's record, spouse, divorced spouse, deceased spouse, or anything like that, yeah, make sure you reach out to Social Security and get that there money. And it won't affect your Medicare. A lot of people think, well, I don't want to, I'm 62, 63 years old. If I get survivor benefits, that means I'm no longer on disability. Therefore, they're going to stop my Medicare. And so I'll just go without the extra $100, $200, $300. 100% incorrect. You'll still get your disability and you'll still have your Medicare. Plus, you'll have that extra money on top of it if there's other benefits available there. Can I collect my husband's Social Security if he waits to take it? I am older than him. If it's your current husband, which it sounds like it's your current husband, you can't. He has to file for benefits. And then when he files for benefits, then you're eligible to file for benefits on his record if you already have to be receiving benefits. If it's a ex-husband, a divorced spouse, then no, you don't have to wait. As long as that person is 62 years old, then you can file for benefits on that person's record. In your awards letter, does it state the CDR date? My letter said 5 to 7 years. I'm almost 61. Yeah, then you're probably good. Yeah, so it doesn't give a specific date. It just says 5 to 7 years, you'll get a CDR. But by that time, you'll be, pretty much, you could. I mean, if they do it 5 years from now, You could get it at, 66, 66 and a half because, and once you hit 67, it doesn't matter anymore. Your full retirement age is 67 years old. Once you hit 67 years old, you're no longer on disability benefits. You're on regular retirement benefits. So there's no such thing as a CDR once you receive once you are your full retirement age, because you're no longer on disability benefits. So nobody in the country is receiving disability benefits after their full retirement age. A lot of people think they are, but no, they're not. They're receiving retirement benefits. They're still disabled, but they're just not receiving disability benefits. They're receiving retirement benefits. And that makes a big difference because, yeah, they think they're limited, but they're not. Ray, what's up, Ray? Retired on disability, got approved June 2024. May 2025, received overpayment letter. June 25th, made appointment with office. They said computer I didn't owe anything, but Birmingham had to approve. Yeah, Birmingham, not sure if it's open. Elon Musk closed down a bunch of the regional processing centers. So if the Birmingham, Alabama processing center has to make the final determination, yeah, good luck with that. It might not be there anymore. But yeah, it sounds like overpayments, probably work or something like that. They miscalculated work, or somebody pushed the wrong button or something like that. But yeah, so I wouldn't worry about it. And but if you're tired of freaking out and being stressed and what Birmingham is going to say, reach out to them, reach out to your politicians, and try to get a little peace of mind there. I'm 64 in November and a doctor myself. I'm extremely healthy. What do I need with Medicare? I take 0 medications. I'm 64 in November, so you're good until next year. Next November, when you hit 65. So right now you don't have to do anything. And next November, when you turn 65, if you're currently practicing, you currently have health insurance from work, but you're the employer. I don't know if you're part of a group health plan or something, but your employer has to have 20 or more employees. If they don't have 20 or more employees, then you have to get Medicare Part A and Part B. But if you do have 20 or more employees and you're currently working to have health insurance from work, and you don't want A or B or any of that, then you don't have to do anything. You don't have to contact Social Security and say, hey, I don't want any of it. You just don't do anything. So, how does life insurance affect getting SSI? SSI is the welfare-based program. Life insurance, if it's a term life insurance and there's cash, or term life insurance, it doesn't affect. If it's a whole life insurance where there's cash surrender value, that, because SSI is a welfare-based program, so you're saying that you're low income, low resources, you need, help. But if you have a whole life insurance policy that has $100,000 that you could access right now, then, that's why they say, yeah, it's gonna disqualify you from receiving it. So, Dodge was a smoke and mirror show. Yes, that's exactly what it turned out to be. I was hoping they would do some good, update the computer system. They seem to be working on that now, but all the computer experts out there that have analyzed this have said, they're trying to do this whole thing in 6 months. And this is a legacy system, Fortran and COBOL from the 1970s, one of the largest computer programs in the world. Databases, probably the largest database in the world, databases. And if they try to do something, yeah, they've already made stupid mistakes by releasing everybody's information on unsecured, cloud, which I talked about a few days ago. And that person is still at Social Security, which is crazy. If he was a Social Security employee, he would have been fired immediately. So, Dr. Ed, if Social Security, Medicare is going to survive, we need decent direction for our health care. And the guy running the department, JFK, is not a doctor, but a false extension to DJT. We're pretty much, yeah, it's some of the stuff that comes out of that guy's mouth. Some of it, it's, you should eat healthier and exercise. Okay, yeah, I think I've heard that somewhere before. Yeah, I'm 57 now and retire according to Social Security until 67. I would like to add 62 out of the country with this possible, and if so, how much of a penalty would I get? Okay, and so you want to retire at 67 and add 62 out of the country? Not sure. So you want to leave the country? Yeah. I did a video the other day on that. For expats, if you go onto my website, mygovexpert.com there, and click on the more, and it has living overseas, and you can live overseas and collect Social Security benefits. It's if you're a U.S. citizen, you can live anywhere except for Cuba or North Korea. But non-citizens, green card, there's limitations, and I've got a little link right there, the payments abroad screening tool. If you can see it there, you can click that. It takes you to the Social Security website, and you can check to see if the effect of living overseas. So if disability is determined, is Medicare 2 years from the disability determination date? Yeah, once you're not the determination date, because sometimes judges determine it's the month of entitlement, the MOE, the onset date, plus the 5 months. So if you're not exactly sure, because you've got approved later, but you got some back pay, but they didn't do this, and it gets kind of confusing. So to be sure when your Medicare starts, when that 25th month is, call up Social Security. And that way you can start lining stuff up now, because we see that happening all the time is people, number one, don't realize they get Medicare after being on disability for 2 years, and then they time it wrong, and then they, make mistakes and they get penalties, or they lose health care that they need for that particular month. So call Social Security and say, hey, when is my Medicare going to start? And that way you kind of get and make sure your address is up to date, because when you update your address to Social Security, connects with Medicare, and then, about 3 months, 2 or 3 months before your 25th month, they will send you everything in the mail, your Medicare Part A and Part B and all that kind of good stuff. So, Michelle, I'm going to be 55 soon. I think I will think about applying for survivor benefits when I turn 60. I receive 100% VA disability. Do I still apply for Medicare at 65? Yeah, if you don't, then you're going to get penalized for the rest of your life. 10% for every 12 months you didn't sign up for Part B, and there's also a penalty for Part D. If you're in TRICARE, you have to sign up. If you receive medical benefits from the VA, and you're not TRICARE, just regular VA, then I would definitely still consider. I've talked about this a few times. A lot of vets, they don't want to sign up for Part B because they want to save the $185, understandable. And they use the VA and they're happy with their VA. But, what happens, there's a bunch of cuts coming to the VA. What happens when you're no longer happy with the VA? You should really have some type of, fallback plan. So definitely check that out. You mentioned in one of your chats that I watched a while ago that mentioned you can refer me to an attorney who is an expert in this area. Yeah, no, I don't. I don't have any attorneys I refer anybody to. I just say if the only time an attorney really, an attorney will do anything if you pay him money. But most of the time, people when they talk about an attorney, they're talking about Social Security disability benefits, that they're applying for disability. And I always say the first 2 stages, it's super, super easy. If you want to get an attorney, go for it. But the first 2 stages are pretty easy. The 3rd stage, then you can get an attorney to help you with the administrative law judge, and always get a local one. So, I'm sure you drive around your town, all those attorneys that deal with disability. Yeah, they've got the big signs out there. So you just, contact one of those and look at local reviews and stuff like that. So, I'm 58. My husband passed away at 67, 6 years ago. Should I retire at 60 or 62? Okay. So retiring in terms of stopping work, that's a whole different issue. But in terms of starting your Social Security benefits, if work is not an issue, you're not making over $23,400, because again, they're going to hold back $1 for every $2 you go over, whether you collect survivor benefits or benefits on your own record. So here, if you're 58, so you can't get benefits on your own record until you're 62. but you can get survivor benefits at 60. So there's a couple extra years of benefits. So what you can do is start survivor benefits at 60 and 2 years later switch over onto your own. Or start your benefits at 60 and then 2 years later don't switch onto your own. It depends what the calculations are. Your benefits on your own record will continue to increase until you hit 70 years old. So sometime between 62 and 70 years old, you switch back over onto your own record. So you can definitely do that. I plan on working until I'm 70, but I am wondering if it's worthwhile applying for benefits next year when I reach FRA, full retirement age, given the upcoming reduction of benefits once the trust fund is depleted. Yeah, that is something that a lot of people are considering. You know, when you want to see whether you're going to file for benefits and when you should start your benefits, there's a bunch of questions. You know, do you need the money? You need the money. That's a slam dunk. Don't need to go anywhere else. Are you working? If you're under your full retirement age, you know, work affects your Social Security benefits. You know, you need to figure that out. Are there people waiting for you to collect your Social Security benefits and so they can collect their Social Security? Like, you know, your spouse or children or something like that. That's usually a big deciding factor. And then your health and genes and taxes and whether you can invest that money. But yeah, now the politics of it all. Do you think our politicians who haven't solved this issue in 40 years about the impending reduction in our Social Security benefits, they had 40 years. We had 40 years to fix it. And we have been told every single year, 40 years down the line, you know, or 47 years down the line, we're going to get cuts. And then 39, you know, that every single year we're told that, and we haven't done anything. And we're still not doing anything, not anything to fix it. So it's September 1st, and I just changed it. Now we only have 88 more full checks. And then the 89th check you will get if nothing happens, if politicians don't do anything, which they're not doing anything now, then we're going to get it cut by 23%. So yeah, that's a question you unfortunately have to answer yourself. Do you have faith that politicians in the next several years are going to fix this and you know, stop the cut? You have to go to an insurance office with your trusted person and sign a form in front of them. My mom did it. It was easy. Yeah, not sure what type of form we're talking about there. I'll be 62 January 1st. Can I apply now? Yeah, it's September. We a little bit September, October, November, December, January. Technically, but if you're going to go online, I'd probably wait a little bit, maybe till October or so. If you want to go into the office and talk to somebody face to face, or if you want to do it over the phone, then I would probably call now because you're not going to get an appointment until October anyway. So just, and in the meantime, make sure you go onto ssa.gov and check your earnings record and make sure there everything is correct there, because that's how they're going to determine how much your benefits are going to be for the rest of your life, is based on how much you paid into Social Security. So, all right, I've got some video questions that weren't able to answer yesterday, so I'll answer some of those and I'll get back to other questions live here.
On filing for disability. My daughter is 18 now and has been in chronic pain since she was 16, maybe a little before. It affects every part of her life. She has had a difficult time with all daily living skills, and basically couldn't do things without me. So if she were to need some kind of documentation, the only thing right now that we've had in all of these years of tests and different doctors, multiple of the same type of doctor but different ones, to try to find an answer, we don't have an exact diagnosis. They have given her a generalized gastro type of diagnosis, but I don't know if that's good enough, and I don't know if Social Security would ask for us to see their doctor, like what documentation should we be anticipating needing?
Okay, so file for benefits. So don't try to play doctor and anticipate what Social Security needs or anything like that. Just go ahead and start the process, because the process takes forever. And every month you wait, you could very well be losing months of money. So you'd be filing for SSI. It's a child disability benefits. So low income, low resources, but they count it different if it's child and stuff. So, but just go ahead and file and let Social Security figure it out. In terms of documentation, you provide, you don't have to provide any documentation at that time if you don't want to. Usually I recommend you kind of don't. What you will do is you will tell Social Security the doctors she has seen, when she saw them and what for and what type of prescriptions and, you know, all this kind of stuff. They will ask all the questions. And then they send it up to DDS, the Disability Determination Service, which is a state agency. And if they need anything else, they will schedule her for what's called a CE, a consultative exam, to see a Social Security contracted doctor and check out anything else. So I would just apply. Please apply, because the whole system takes forever. And the reason I recommend don't providing your, you know, you can provide your own medical stuff, but the problem is if it's like a, you know, a slam dunk, you know, you just, you know, were diagnosed with, you know, terminal cancer or something like that. That's one page. Provide that. You're usually approved the same day. But if you have hundreds of pages of documents, I would just let the DDS, the Social Security agency, get those documents directly from the hospital, the clinic, or the doctor, because a lot of times when people send in, you know, 100 pages of medical documents, you know, they go through that 100 pages and they pick out, you know, pull out the pages that don't, you know, support their allegations. And so the people that are the claims examiners that are looking at this, they say, well, I got 100 pages there and it's not, you know, it's not, there is no page numbers on it. So I can't tell whether page 23 is missing or 75 is missing. So just to be on the safe side, I'm just going to go ahead and request it directly from the doctor or the hospital, and I'll make sure that way I know it's a complete package, and I don't really trust this, you know. So that's one of the reasons. A lot of time it's a waste of time. But don't, you know, wait on documentation. Don't wait. Oh, well, I've got an appointment next week or next month, and so as soon as I have that appointment, then I'll go ahead and apply. No. You go ahead and apply, get this process started. And then when you have your doctor's appointment next month, then you just, you know, if you want to, you can send that additional information up. So yeah, please don't waste time. Another question here.
I am, my name is Denise. I'm from Washington State. I have a L&I, Labor and Industries, Workman's Comp pension currently. I've only had it a year. I understand I have like a year and a half to change it to SSDI. Why? I don't know. I'd like to know. I am 62 now. My ex-husband will be 62 this month. So I have 6 months left of my waiting period for changing Workman's Comp into SSDI. My question is, do I do a rib-dib? What happens with my application for Labor and Industries pension amount? Does that change when I get Social Security? Are they still responsible for the balance if there's a difference? A lot of questions here. I hope I covered them all. Thanks.
Okay, so when you receive disability benefits, the only thing that can really offset disability benefits is, yes, workers' comp, public disability benefits. So, and the reason your private insurance company or the workers' comp or even private insurance company, even if it's one of those, wants you to file for disability is because it's in their contract between you and your company and your union or whoever the case may be that they're going to try to get out of paying money. So that's the long, you know, that's the short of it. So they'll say, okay, we'll give you $2,000 based on your disability per month, but based on the contract, the fine print in the contract, you have to file for disability benefits. And if you're approved, they offset that. So if you get $1,500, here's how it sometimes works. A lot of times you get $1,500 from Social Security, and they say, okay, well, you get $1,500 for Social Security. Now we only have to pay $500. So it helps their bottom line. And then the CEO can go buy a new, yacht or whatever the case may be. But anyway, so if you file for disability benefits and your workers' comp is going to continue, then Social Security will offset your disability benefits, because Congress decided a few years ago that people shouldn't make more money receiving disability benefits than they did when they were actually working. So, and this only counts for workers' comp and public disability, state, city, government type things. If it's a private insurance, that doesn't affect Social Security at all. Only if it's a public disability type of thing. So the argument is, if you were working and your average earnings was $3,000, and then all of a sudden you become injured at work and you receive Social Security benefits and workers' comp, and your benefits are $4,000 a month, they say, yeah, you're making more on being disabled than you did when you're working. So that's why there's that offset there. So what you do is you go ahead and file for disability benefits, and you make sure you notify Social Security that you are receiving the workers' comp public disability, and they'll have a form that you need to fill out and approve authorization to that agency to release information to Social Security. Social Security will send it off and find out how much your benefit is going to be, all that kind of stuff, and they'll determine the calculations. In terms of filing for RIB-DIB, so that's filing for retirement benefits and the disability benefits at the same time. It really depends on your particular situation. You can, and the reason a lot of people do is because it takes 6 to 9 months at least to get a decision on your disability. And if you need money monthly to start, then yeah. So a lot of people say, hey, file my disability. I'll get an answer, sometime next year, but, my landlord and my mortgage, won't take that as payment. So I need to pay this month. So people get their retirement benefits started, and that way they got some money coming in. And then if they're approved, a little caution here, if you're approved for disability benefits, and they start it in a future date and you've been receiving retirement benefits for 12 months, they will use that 12 months kind of as a calculation to reduce your disability benefits. But normally, because you file at the same time, it won't, because your disability benefits probably are going to start, same time you started receiving retirement benefits. So the calculations are strange, and it's RIB after DIB and workers' comp and monthly, and then there's the amortize, but file. And sounds like the insurance company is wanting you to file, making you file, because they're trying to save money. So all right, we've got some interesting ones here. Let's see what we got here.
Now, hey, Ed, I've been a carpenter since 1978. They put me on a disability bullshit check for like 15, 20 years. I'm wondering if I'm going to get my check when I turn 66 and 10 months old.
All right. So, yep. If you're on Social Security disability now, when you turn 66 and 10 months old, sounds like that's your full retirement age. Nothing will change. As far as you're concerned, immediately, your check, you'll still get the same check, same direct deposit, same day, all that kind of good stuff. The only thing that will change is internally behind the scenes. The money will come out of not the Social Security Disability Trust Fund, which is coming out now. It'll start coming out of the Retirement Trust Fund. Just a, accounting thing. But for you, that means you're no longer on disability. You're on regular retirement benefits. And because you're on retirement benefits and you're after your full retirement age, then you can work and make as much as you want. And there's no more continuing disability reviews. So there's that. It's a beautiful thing. You're free.
Hi, Dr. Ed. I had 2 questions for you. I am presently 60 years old, and my wife is 55 or 52, excuse me. And I was going to postpone my retirement till 70 and collect the 8% or 24% more, because we didn't really need it right now. with her working full time. I got two questions for you. Um, when I turn 69 or 70 is going to be the year 2034, right? The evil number that's coming up. Um, what would you suggest? Because I didn't want to get it at 62, but everybody's telling me if you don't get it, it's going to be gone by 2034. But they also say that, Congress and Senate's going to fix everything. They'll extend it or whatever. But the problem is, the only thing I've heard is they might extend the retirement from 67 to maybe even more, 70, 72, whatever. Then I wouldn't get the extra 24%. So that kind of catch 22 there. What would you suggest? I mean, in my situation, you said every situation is different. My parents have lasted until like 90, 92, so I'm not worried about death. The second question is,
All right, let me get this first one. Yeah, I wish I knew. 40 years we've been talking about this, and it was a plan, and I've got it in my description. The plan was written in the 1980s to let the clock run out. Don't do anything. Just talk about all kinds of BS about, the money was stolen, the trust fund was stolen, it was given to immigrants, all this BS that they distract us with, and wait for the, kick the can down the road. And then when it comes to, okay, next month your check is going to be cut by 23%, then politicians can, convince us to do anything, raise the retirement age, reduce benefits, whatever the case may be. But yeah, I really wish I knew. But in terms of raising the retirement age, historically, since 1935, they really haven't done it on current. I think there would be a massive revolt if they did it, on current recipients, people that are currently receiving benefits. All of a sudden, you're 68 years old, and they say, "Oh, we just moved it to 70 years old. So if you're 68, you need to give all that money back because now it's I don't think they would do. They're dumb, but I don't think they're that dumb." Okay, all right, I'll stop there. And also those people that are fast approaching, like when they raised the retirement age in the 1980s, they let that, they gave a long leeway. Like this year is the final year. Starting this year, it's 70 years old. So this is the first year it was 70 years old. So if you're born in 1960, and that was an act that they started in 1983 under Reagan, is to raise the retirement age. And it finally took full effect this year. So I don't think they're going to do that. But hey, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before.
I understand the benefit for my spouse, but I also have an ex, and we've been married more than 10 years. So if I retire at 67, or at 70, excuse me, my wife can't collect until I'm 70, like that, but my ex can. Would that affect the amount that I get? I think it doesn't, but I'm just understanding how can they cover so much? You got children's benefits, you got spouse benefits, you got ex-spouse, just so much money. It's like no wonder this thing's going to run out, honestly. But if you can answer any of those two questions, and your suggestion on the first one.
Okay. Yeah, it's not going to run out because of that. It's going to run out because the people that make a lot of money don't pay Social Security like we do, but that's a whole different issue. But yeah, so your current spouse, because you're currently married, your current spouse can't collect benefits on your record until you start collecting benefits on your record. Okay. A divorced spouse, if you're married to that person 10 years or longer, yeah, they're eligible for benefits on your record. You don't have to be collecting Social Security benefits. It's called independently entitled divorce spouse benefits. As long as you're 62, she's 62, you've been divorced for 2 years, and you were actually married for 10 years. And then the calculations have to be, your ex-spouse has to file for benefits on her own record. And then if your full benefit amount is twice her full benefit amount, then she can collect benefits on your record. And it's not the delayed retirement credits in there. It's not those delayed retirement credits. It's based on your PIA, which is your benefit amount at your full retirement age. Your divorced spouse won't get those extra delayed retirement credits till she becomes a surviving divorced spouse. Surviving spouses can get those delayed retirement credits. All right, we got one last one, a super short one.
Would you explain the situation regarding Social Security and DACA recipients?
Okay, so DACA is what deferred action for childhood arrival. So those are the people that their parents brought them over, and they didn't come over through regular legal channels, but the children obviously, just followed mom and dad, or just mom, or whatever, and so they are not being kicked out and all this kind of stuff. So it's a deferred action for childhood arrivals. This is the name applies. And it's kind of a strange situation. So it's a deferred action. So basically the full action is deferred for later. We'll address that later when we're great politically on putting band-aids on stuff. But they pay Social Security. They get a Social Security card. They can go get a Social Security card. They have to have work authorization as long as they're active DACA recipients. On their Social Security card, it says work authorization allowed by DHS. So if an employer hires that person, they have to contact DHS to make sure that DACA status is still active. And they're allowed to hire that person, and that person pays taxes, including Social Security taxes and Medicare taxes and all that kind of stuff. But they can't collect Social Security because they don't have legal status in the full respect, because it's just a deferred action. An action hasn't been taken other than, hey, you can pay taxes. But if they turn 62 years old and want to file for Social Security benefits, they can't get it because they're not in the country legally, unless within that time they switch to a regular green card. If they switch to a regular green card, all that money they paid in Social Security, good, it's theirs. They can go ahead and file for benefits. So until that deferred action actually becomes an action and they actually do something, then they can't collect Social Security benefits. I did a video, was it yesterday, day before yesterday, explaining the difficulty, if not impossibility, of people that are not in this country legally receiving Social Security. And that's what politicians use all the time. Is, oh yeah, the Social Security Trust Fund, you won't get cut by 23% if we kick all those people illegally off. But I showed yesterday, the day before yesterday, how all of the processes Social Security uses to make sure people that are not in this country don't receive benefits, that they're not in this country legally. So yeah, that's another trick that politicians use to distract us, and we fall for it. Not our community here, because we're smarter than that. But Kathy, if I collect mine at 62, husband 63 on Social Security disability, at 67, can I get half of his on mine? Want to get his full amount if something happens to him. Best time for me to collect. Okay, so yeah, if you start your benefits on your record, and this is a current husband, yeah, well, you have to file for benefits on his record as well. It's called deemed filing. So if he's receiving benefits and you're receiving benefits, you start your benefits, then you have to start benefits on his record. In terms of survivor benefits, that is determined based on when that event happens. So you're on regular spouse benefits, and your benefits are reduced because you filed for spouse benefits early. That doesn't necessarily affect survivor benefits. If you are your full retirement age when he passes, you will receive 100% of his benefit amount. Because he's on disability, you'll receive 100% of his full benefit amount, because his benefit amount is not reduced because he is on disability. So when you start your spouse benefits, not relevant to future surviving spouse benefits. According to a couple of different searches, the Social Security Administration's main processing office in Birmingham office is not closed and is still open for in-person. So yeah, that's not you're looking at the DO. You're looking at the district office. The Birmingham I'm sure they have a few Social Security district offices, and I'm sure they're open for in-person. But the Birmingham Processing Center, that's a whole different animal. So the processing centers do not take in-office or in-person appointments. So that's a completely different office. So if you work until 67 and have creditable health coverage from work, you could also just sign up for Part A Medicare, then sign up for Part B and D later. Yep, that is 100% correct. Absolutely. Creditable health coverage for current work. That's it. And that's what some people do. Is they could, yeah, I have health insurance from work, but you know, the hospital deductible is $2,000 and the hospital deductible for Medicare is $1,676 this year. And so that's going to save me money if I ever have to go to the hospital. So, and then Part A is zero premium. So that's a slam dunk. I'll just go ahead and sign up for Part A. The only qualification there is if you're giving to a health savings account, you have to stop that 6 months before you start Part A because you lose your tax, benefits. And there's some people out there in social media incorrectly saying that regulation has gone away with the Big Beautiful Bill. It hasn't. In one of the earlier versions of the Big Beautiful Bill, it said that they're going to get rid of that. But the final one that was signed by the president and is now law doesn't have that. So that thing still stays. So people out there on social media giving Social Security, Medicare advice, please do your homework a tad bit better, please. Thanks for all your help you give us. You're welcome. And thank you for all the help you are going to give everybody else in your community by sharing and helping that little old lady down the street, making sure they're getting all the benefits. And yeah, okay. If I'll be 62 December 11th, what month would be best to apply to start IEDS in fall? Okay, independently entitled divorced spouse. So you go ahead and file for benefits on your own record, and you want to do everything in February. So yeah, this one you can't do online, so you have to do. I would request an in-office appointment on this one, and so I would call them now and schedule an in-office appointment for October, November, which is probably the soonest you're going to be able to get an appointment anyway. And you're going to need a little bit more hoops to jump through on the independently entitled divorced spouse. You'll obviously need your marriage certificate and the divorce decree. But because your ex-spouse hasn't started their benefits and haven't technically reviewed their earnings and stuff, so there's a couple other things, but don't worry about that. That's the Social Security employee's job to, navigate that fun stuff. So yeah, you just get, you check your earnings record on your own record, get your marriage certificate, get your divorce decree, get all that set up and call them up and schedule an appointment. So, all right, let's see here. Social Security put me on Medicare and takes out $185 a month. Can I get my own health insurance? Yeah, and you still have to pay the $185 and, other health insurance is usually the Affordable Care, marketplace insurance. And you can't get any premium subsidies, the advanced premium tax credits or cost sharing or anything like that because you're on Medicare. You lose all that. You can still get the Affordable Care Act marketplace insurance, but you don't get any of the premium subsidies or anything like that. So, but in terms of, maybe you're talking about, so you have Part A and Part B. You want other insurance to cover the gaps. Okay, so if that's the case, yeah, you have two options: a Medicare supplement plan, which is called a Medigap plan, or a Medicare Advantage plan. I always recommend you talk, whoever you talk to, you can call chapter or whoever and say, hey, I want to get coverage because, original Medicare is awesome, but there's a lot of financial gaps and I don't have the millions of dollars sitting around, to cover those gaps. So tell me about Medicare supplements. What's the difference between a Plan G and a Plan N and all this kind of stuff? Do I need a Part D plan as well? And then once they tell you all that, then say, okay, now tell me about Medicare Advantage plans. They're supposed to do that. I get people every now and then, oh, I hate Ed because, him and chapter, they support, privatization of Medicare through Medicare Advantage plans. I agree with you. I don't know about the hate Ed part, but yeah, I don't think, Medicare should be privatized through Medicare Advantage, but it is. And every person that helps you with Medicare in the country, by regulation, they can lose their license. if they don't give you a compliant presentation, and a compliant presentation is CMS says, when you enroll someone Medicare like that, you have to tell them all of this stuff, including a Medicare supplement plan, difference between that and a Medicare Advantage plan. So they have to, chapter and every place out there has to tell you all that information. If they don't, then that's not good. And so that's why I always tell people, you know, hey, make sure, you know, you talk about Medicare supplement, because if you call any other place than chapter, then that person sometimes just wants to give you a Medicare Advantage plan because they make more money. Oh, and I had someone said they called chapter and they were and they did what I said not to do, was focus on Medicare Advantage. That's because that person was receiving Medicaid. If you're receiving Medicaid, then they can talk to you about Medicare supplements. Okay, here's the Medicare supplements, a plan G and a plan N, but because you're on Medicaid, you can't get one. So if you want, we can still talk about Medicare Advantage or Medicare supplement plans and go into more details, but you can't get one. You're on Medicaid, you can't get one. So the only thing you can get is a Medicare Advantage plan. So we can move on to that conversation if you want. And so someone said, oh yeah, I called up and they just wanted to, talk about Medicare Advantage. And I said, are you on Medicaid? Yeah, I'm on Medicaid. That's why. So if you ever get off Medicaid, then you can go a Medicare supplement plan. So absolutely. So, all right, y'all, I think that's it for today. We're way over an hour. I appreciate y'all. So I'll be back again tomorrow and answer a whole bunch of other questions if I missed your question today. Y'all have a beautiful, beautiful day. And please, 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 please take care of each other. Bye-bye.